Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're doing something really exciting. We're stepping right into the boardroom to dive into the high-stakes mindset of executives who have to make massive decisions under extreme uncertainty. We're talking about one of the most absolutely crucial concepts in enterprise management and the CSCA syllabus for that matter, strategic risk. We're not just going to sit here and memorize definitions. No, we're going to learn how to actually anticipate change, protect your competitive advantage, and frankly, keep a business alive when the ground is literally shifting beneath its feet.
So let's kick things off with a pretty provocative question. Why do successful companies sometimes just fail? Even when they have incredibly talented employees, stellar financial performance, and honestly, excellent products. Think about it. We've all seen these massive, seemingly invincible corporations just suddenly collapse. It totally shatters this common assumption that if your day-to-day operations are good, your long-term survival is guaranteed. You could have the smartest engineers, the most aggressive sales team, literally a rock-solid balance sheet today, and still be totally out of business in 5 years. So if it's not a lack of talent, and it's not a lack of cash, what exactly is taking these giants down?
Well, the answer is actually incredibly simple but profound. They fail because they underestimate or just completely ignore strategic risks. That's it. The silent killer of these once great businesses, it's usually not some operational failure, like a factory line breaking down for a week. No, they fail because they completely miss the existential threats, those massive tectonic shifts in the business environment that make their core products entirely obsolete.
So, what exactly is it? Strategic risk basically represents the uncertainties that could prevent an organization from achieving its strategic objectives. It threatens the long-term direction, the competitive advantage, and future profitability. But here is the crucial point. Strategic risk is strictly forward-looking. It asks a pretty terrifying but absolutely necessary question. What could prevent our entire business model from succeeding in the future? It's not about asking if we're doing things right today. It's about asking, are we doing the right things for tomorrow?
Now this brings us to a super common CSCA exam trap. You absolutely must be able to distinguish a day-to-day operational headache from a fundamental strategic threat. Look, operational risk is all about your daily activities, right? A server crashes, a supplier is running late, maybe a machine breaks down. It's a headache, it's painful, but it's usually temporary. Strategic risk, on the other hand, threatens your long-term direction. Think of it like this. If your machinery breaks down, that's operational. But if a brand new technology comes along and makes your machinery completely irrelevant, that, my friends, is strategic.
And there's this golden rule for executives when evaluating these threats. Not every large risk is strategic. Just because a problem costs a whole lot of money to fix doesn't automatically mean it's a strategic risk. Take a massive factory fire, for example. That is a devastating operational and financial blow for sure. But it only crosses the line into becoming a strategic risk if it permanently damages your competitive position and allows your rivals to irreversibly capture your market share. Grasping that distinction? That's the real hallmark of an executive mindset.
Okay, let's move into our first major section, the graveyard of successful giants.
Let's look at some real-world examples of companies that just flat-out ignored the future and paid the ultimate price. Take Kodak. They actually invented the digital camera, but they completely failed to adapt their business model to it, and, well, that led to bankruptcy. Or Nokia, right? They totally underestimated the touchscreen smartphone revolution, and Blockbuster famously ignored digital streaming until it was way too late. But now contrast them with Netflix. Netflix actually started by mailing physical DVDs, but they recognized the strategic risk of physical media becoming obsolete. So what did they do? They adapted. They literally cannibalized their own highly successful DVD business and shifted entirely to streaming. It just proves that successful organizations don't avoid risk. They recognize it early and they pivot.
Next up, let's talk about navigating the VUCA world.
To truly understand why those massive giants fell, we have to understand the unpredictable environment that actually breeds these risks in the first place. Today, we operate in a modern business environment driven by volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, or, as it's known, VUCA. Volatility just means things are changing fast. Uncertainty means we can't easily predict the future anymore. Complexity means everything is globally interconnected, like a giant puzzle. And ambiguity? That means we're often operating without any clear precedents. In an environment like this, relying on last year's strategy is pretty much a recipe for disaster. Strategic risk increases exponentially here, demanding extreme agility if you want to survive.
So where exactly do these risks come from? Let's start with the external sources.
These are the forces that can disrupt your entire industry from the outside in. We're talking about technological disruption, like how generative AI is completely reshaping industries right now. Or maybe a government suddenly introduces legislation banning your primary product. Or perhaps a brand new, highly agile competitor enters the market. Or customer expectations just suddenly shift overnight. As an executive, you obviously can't control these external forces, but you absolutely must anticipate them.
But let's be honest for a second. Sometimes the threat is coming from inside the house. Internal sources of strategic risk can be just as dangerous, if not more so. We're talking about things like weak leadership, poor strategic decisions, ineffective governance, or honestly just inadequate innovation. These things can slowly rot a company from within. Think about it. You could have the absolute most stable external market in the world, but if your leadership team is making terrible choices and failing to build the right organizational capabilities, your competitive advantage is going to collapse eventually.
All right, moving into Section 3, the strategic risk management process. Let's look at the antidote to all this chaos. So here is a structured 5-step playbook to protect your long-term objectives, and notice how it follows a very strict logical sequence. Step 1, identify your strategic objectives. I mean, you can't protect what you haven't defined, right? Step 2, identify the actual risks threatening those specific goals. Step 3, assess their impact and their likelihood. Step 4, develop actionable response strategies. And finally, Step 5, monitor and continuously adapt. Now pay super close attention here. In your CSC exam, you're very often going to be given a complex business scenario and asked to identify exactly which of these steps management is currently performing. So definitely memorize this sequence.
Section 4, the management accountant's role.
Now, you might be sitting there thinking, isn't managing these massive existential threats a task reserved solely for the CEO or the board? Actually, no way. The role of the management accountant is absolutely vital here. You're strategic partners. You don't just sit there and record the past. You provide the financial modeling and those early warning indicators needed to navigate future uncertainty. You're the ones conducting the scenario analysis, asking the tough questions like, what if inflation hits 10%? Or what if our biggest competitor drops their prices by 20%? You evaluate the financial implications of these shocks, and you design the key performance indicators that alert the executive team way before a risk turns into a full-blown crisis.
And finally, Section 5, surviving the next disruption. Let's bring this all together. At the end of the day, all this theory is only useful if it actually helps us survive the next massive market disruption. Because here's the truth. You cannot eliminate risk entirely. Anyone who promises you a completely risk-free strategy is, frankly, lying to you. Strategic risk management is not about eliminating uncertainty. It's about anticipating change and building resilience. It's about building an agile organization that can take a punch, absorb the shocks, and actually thrive in an unpredictable world. You do that by making better, more informed strategic decisions today so you aren't caught completely off guard tomorrow. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a couple of profound executive reflection questions. Really ask yourself right now, which core assumptions currently underpin your organization's strategy? And even more importantly, what specific technological, social, or economic shift could make your business model completely obsolete overnight? You have to challenge your assumptions. You've got to think like a disruptor before somebody else disrupts you. Ponder those questions to get yourself geared up for our next explainer, where we're going to dive into the fascinating concept of strategic dissonance. Until then, keep questioning the future.